Hi, welcome back to U.S. History with me, Mr. Snyder, and right now we are going to talk about Clinton's domestic policy in the 1990s. So when Clinton is elected, he faces a great challenge. Only five out of six previous elections had been Republican presidents, the only exception being Carter, and the Republican arguments and conservatives and ideals basically resonate with a lot of Americans. So Clinton needs to chart a middle course, and it's rocky going at first, but then he soon learns his way. So one of the famous things he did is he signs the Family Medical Leave Act, which guarantees employees 12 weeks off, unpaid leave for childbirth, illness, or an ill family member that they need to care for. Some companies are more progressive, and some cities and states have laws above this which require a certain amount of paid maternity leave or leave in general. But Clinton makes the minimum 12 weeks off of unpaid leave, childbirth, illness, or an ill family member. Some other things he did are he raised the minimum wage, makes getting a college loan easier, and gives higher loans, bigger tax credits for higher education. He also tried to reform the healthcare system and make it government controlled, and that fails very early in his term because Americans did not want the government to run their healthcare. He also signs the Brady Bill very early in his first term. It's a gun control act that requires a 5-day waiting period and a national background check system. The waiting period so that nobody does anything hasty or rash with a gun, and a national background check system to make sure criminals can't go from state to state to state, evading their criminal backgrounds and being able to get a gun in a new state. There's also a terrorist attack in 1995 in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. And it wasn't by Al-Qaeda, it was by U.S. anti-government extremists led by the Unabomber, who's Timothy McVeigh. And he was a Gulf War vet who went to live in the woods in Montana and Idaho area and basically write anti-government writings and then carry them out later on. He exploded a car bomb in front of a federal building. Lots of people were killed. There was a daycare full of children who were killed. It was a very, very sad day. And also in 1999, the Columbine shooting brings attention to school shootings and bullying of kids. 2 students bring weapons to school and kill 12 other students and then themselves. After this, schools institute zero-tolerance policies on school violence and anti-bullying programs. So a lot of Republicans are saying, wait, Clinton, you said you were going to do this, but you're not really charting a middle course between Democrats and Republicans. So Congressman Newt Gingrich is a Republican Speaker of the House who leads opposition to Clinton. And he creates a contract with America, which basically says, America, if you vote Republicans into Congress, we will balance the federal budget, reform the welfare system, give tax cuts for middle America or the middle class, make a smaller government, and set term limits for congressmen. Now, they succeeded in some of these things. Other things like term limits they weren't able to pass. But in 1994, because of this promise in the midterm elections, midterm because they're between the 1992 and 1996 presidential elections, Republicans win control of the House for the first time in 40 years, which means that they have more Republicans than Democrats in the House. They also capture the Senate. And so now we have what's called a divided government, where we have someone in the White House who's one party and another person, or Congress is of the other party. And Bill Clinton then does a better job charting a middle course in the next 2 years. And in the 1996 presidential election, we have a great economy. We've brought the country out of recession, and the economy rises rapidly. We have low unemployment, close to a balanced budget. If it ain't broke, why fix it? So Clinton wins by a wide margin over his opponents, Bob Dole and Jack Kemp. And that's where the poop hits the fan, I like to say, because Clinton has been dodging scandals throughout his time in office. There was something called Travelgate. He is working out a sexual harassment lawsuit from Paula Jones from his time as governor of Arkansas. And People are also investigating some allegedly illegal investments he made in the Whitewater Corporation in Arkansas. And so Congress appoints Kenneth Starr, a special prosecutor. It was actually a three-judge panel that appoints him. But they appoint him to investigate this Whitewater case. And he doesn't find any evidence of Clinton's guilt in Whitewater, but while he's snooping around, he does uncover other things about Clinton. He investigates Clinton's relationship with a White House intern, this lady here, Monica Lewinsky. And Monica Lewinsky is an unpaid White House intern. So in Clinton's second term, they couldn't agree on a budget, and the government actually shut down. And so the government relied on a lot more on unpaid interns to do their work. And they were able to get closer to the president and Monica Lewinsky. They had an affair. He publishes his info in the Starr Report, which you can look up online and read for yourself. Clinton lied under oath. We all know his famous speech. I did not have sexual relations with that woman. So later he admits that he lied under oath, and that is perjury. That is illegal. So Starr recommends impeachment. And impeachment is the bringing up on charges. It's not throwing the person out of office. Clinton is only the second president ever to be impeached. The first one was not Nixon. It was Andrew Johnson back in the 1860s after Lincoln was shot and killed. Johnson takes over, breaks a law, they impeach him, but he was not thrown out of office. And Clinton was not thrown out of office. Most Americans felt impeachment is too harsh because he's not lying because he's trying to get out of something. He's lying because he's embarrassed that everybody's bringing up his sexual history. And so Clinton is acquitted or found not guilty on the charges of perjury and obstruction of justice. So that's Clinton in the 1990s. Let's talk a little bit about technology in the 1990s. It's the birth of the computer age in the 1900s. And the first really modern computer was made by the British during World War II by a man by the name of Alan Turing to try to break Axis codes so that we could find out what the Axis were doing. And we eventually do. Turing makes his Turing machine, and that is really the first computer, and it shortens the war by 2 years, estimates say, and saves hundreds of thousands of Allied lives. The U.S. government is the first to develop the first modern computer in 1946. They're trying to improve the atomic bomb. It takes up an entire research lab in a basement, and it can only do basic calculations. The phone in your pocket is 1,000,000 times cheaper, 1,000,000 times smaller, and 1,000 times more powerful than that first computer. So we've come a long way. Universities and corporations fund the development of computers after World War II. IBM introduces its first modern model in 1954, the 704, and it ran on vacuum tubes. And we like to say there's a computer bug in a software program. That actually comes from this computer when moths and bugs would get sucked into these vacuum tubes and ruin the entire board. Silicon Valley in the 1960s, companies there begin to develop the microchip and the microprocessor that make computers much smaller, and it makes it possible for them to have smaller computers for individuals, and we call them personal computers, or as you probably know them, PCs. And in the 1970s, it really is for hobbyists. The nerdiest of nerds play around trying to build computers. And those nerdiest of nerds, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, and Steve Wozniak, become very, very rich after developing personal computers to market to people and making computers affordable enough for millions of Americans. And they start Apple and Microsoft. It becomes more mainstream in the 1980s. It transforms research, industries, and business. Computer technology spreads to other industries as well. Cars, video games, cell phones, cameras, other electronics all depend on the microchip that was developed. And e-commerce, or the using of computers to buy and sell things on the internet, transforms the way we shop. And two of those sites are Amazon and eBay, both of which still around today. So in the late 1900s, in the 60s and 70s, you can't really peg a year, but we move out of the industrial age into the information age. And access to information is access to power. So anyone who has access to a computer and the internet can access information that was only for a few individuals before. Satellites are used for military purposes, but then we start to use them for cable television, which becomes prominent in the 80s, phones and computer signals, and the internet, which was used by universities to connect their computers together first, is then available to the masses, and it transforms education, commerce, research, and entertainment. So that's all I have for you today. Be sure to fill out your learning targets, and I will see you later. Bye-bye.